Kia ora koutou. I am the Casual Kiwi, and this is my Toadally Timelords deck profile for 2018. Now, some of you might have noticed a little bit of a change in the setup. I noticed a lot of glare on my last two videos, and so I'm going to try it without my lamp just to see how it goes. So any feedback on how it looks is greatly appreciated. So without further ado, let's jump right into the profile. So you want to begin with the standard frog package, which is 3 swap frog, 3 dupe, and then just 2 Ronin totem. So the frog package is fantastic. This is tried and true stuff. But let's move on to the secondary engine. So in addition to the frogs, you'll be playing a Timelord package. So of course you want to be playing 3 Time Maiden. This does everything for Timelords, and I feel like especially combined with other decks like this is where Timelords really shine. So Time Maiden can be tributed off to search a Time Lord to the hand. Now if you search one of your water Time Lords, then basically you can immediately use that as fodder to bring out Swap Frog, or you could go the standard Time Lord play, which is to normal summon the Time Lord and basically use it as a wall and set off its cool effects. So yeah, the 0.3 Time, this is basically another water in the deck because of its add to hand effect. And adds a lot of consistency. So then the Time Lords that I play are 2 Zaphion, 2 Gabrion, and Mishion the Time Lord. My favorite one right there. So basically you're playing the water Time Lords because of that synergy with Swap Frog and the Swap Frog play. And then the other reason you're playing them is that these provide a lot of non-destructive removal, which can be really handy for getting rid of things that might prevent you getting to Toad. The other weakness that frogs often have is that they can have quite a slow start. So these provide that additional kind of turn if your opponent doesn't have an out to one of these. So Zaphion shuffles back all of your opponent's spells and traps into the deck, including set spells and traps when they battle. And Gabrion shuffles back all of your opponent's board, but they do get to draw for everything that goes back to the main deck. So you really only want to be bringing this out when your opponent has a lot of extra deck monsters on the field. This can be very useful for clearing that. And then Mishion just halves your opponent's life points. Another problem that frogs can sometimes have is that Toad is not an enormous monster. It's only got 2,200 attack. So having something that really lowers your opponent's life points can really help you close out the game. I just feel that this engine has so much potential to work well with frogs that I'm surprised I don't see many more decks utilizing this strategy. So those are all of the Time Lords. Then the last 2 monsters that I play are 2 Gameciel. Again, another Swap Frog target, and also it's just more removal. Being able to tribute over your opponent's monster, Gameciel is just great for it. It does have the same attack value as Toad, which is something to bear in mind, but you can easily get rid of this with other stuff instead of trying to get over it with Toad itself. You know, banish it with a Paleo or do something else with it, but that can be a very handy option to have. So for spells we only play 2, so Foolish Burial and 1 for 1. Foolish Burial can be good for sending Ronin Totem, but you can also send a Time Maiden, and 1 for 1 as well just allows you to guess out Time Maiden again as well. Just really solid in this particular build. but that's all you really need, I think, for this particular deck. So moving on to traps, we do indeed play the Paleos, and I am running 3 Paleo Dinomischus. Now, normally you don't see people playing this at 3 because you get to banish with this card, but you have to discard a card from hand. The thing is with this build is that you will often end up with a Timelord in the hand that you might not be using. So I feel like you can definitely run this at 3 in this Toadally Timelords build. A bit more standard, we run 3 Olenoides. I really do feel this is the best Paleozoic at the moment. It just destroys a spell or trap card. This is just an excellent way to, you know, get rid of pesky back row. Then I run just the 2 Paleozoic Canadia. It's kind of the Book of Moon for the deck. It's good in some situations, but with link monsters not being able to be flipped face down, I think its potential has waned. And then I just play the 1 Lenincolia. I know some people are kind of iffy about this Paleo, but I think again it's really good in this build. It allows you to put a banished monster back in the graveyard, so you can use it with your frogs to get off Ronin Totem's effect an additional time, or you can use it to put Time Maiden back in the graveyard and then banish it again in order to special summon out a Time Lord. Really great if you're just stalling out with Mission over and over again and just burning them over and over again. This is just kind of a win more extender, or to help you with the grind, because this deck does grind a lot. For those who don't know, the Paleos are unaffected by other monster effects, and you can also chain their activation in order to special summon one from the graveyard as a monster. They're all level 2 Aqua, so they have loads of synergy with frogs, and I feel like this is the ratio for this particular build. I won't build it any other way. So to go on to the rest of our traps, we have 3 Torrential Tributes. This is fantastic board wipe for this deck, and it's especially good because Timelords, I should have mentioned it earlier, but they cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. So Torrential Tribute clears your opponent's board, but it doesn't clear your Timelord. Just a fantastic option to have there. I also play 3 Reckless Greeds. This also triggers all your Paleos, so you're getting back additional material that way as well. So it can be well worth the risk of missing out on your next 2 draw phases. I would say this is very much down to personal preference. I like its synergy with the Paleos, but other people might say that they prefer Pot of Desires or any other kind of generic draw power. So that's the last of the normal traps. And then I play 3 Solemn Strike and 2 Anti-Spell Fragrance. So the reason I only play 2 Anti-Spell Fragrance, which allows neither player to use magic cards without setting them first, is because while this is a fantastic opening card, you never want this to be like your top deck. You never want to draw into this later in the game. So it's a little cliched, you know, shout out to Fafa, you know, want to see it sometimes but not all the time. I just feel like at 3 is too much. Solemn Strike is just fantastic for most situations. It's an excellent card, what can I say. You might have noticed this is not a Trap Trick build, the new card that came out in Soul Fusion. I think you definitely could run Trap Trick in this. I think you would swap these out for Trap Trick if you were to do that, and then you would maybe add in another Paleozoic Canadia, and that would be my only changes I'd really make to this build. So that's it for the main deck, and on to the extra deck. So of course, to begin with, you run 3 of the big toad himself, Toadally Awesome. It wouldn't be Toadally Timelords without him. I do play 2 Mistar Boy. You can definitely bump this up to 3, but I feel like the combination where you get 2 Mistar Boys on the field and a toad, and that's over 8,000, is fairly rare. And then I also play the 1 Nightmare Cerberus. The reason I only play Cerberus and not Phoenix is because you have a lot of back row disruption, both in Toad but also in your Paleozoic Holonoides. And this does all the nightmares require 2 monsters with different names, and so because of that, you need to remember that your frogs, a lot of them count as Death Frog on the field. So you need to be careful with when you're making this guy. But again, just having some more monster destruction doesn't hurt. XYZ monsters. So at the moment I'm playing 3 Paleozoic Opabenia, and I also play the 1 Paleozoic Anomalocaris, I think is how you say that. So this is just 3 level 2s. It's slightly more attack than your toad. So it can be another, push for game kind of option. Very rare to make it, but good to have the option. Then to round off the XYZs, I play 1 Armored Kappa and 1 Downward Magician. If you've really locked down your opponent, then Downward Magician can be very useful for go. It has piercing, and you can rank up into it using one of your level 2s. Potentially Armored Kappa, actually, because this card is terrible. It has a battle fader effect and an attack boost effect, and the battle fader effect can only be used once per duel. This is why you don't run multiple Armored Kappas. But it is there if you're at a really tight spot and you just need one more turn, maybe just to draw into a Time Lord, or you can use its effects to discard one to ditch a Time Maiden into the grave, so you can special a Time Lord. I like Armored Kappa. I think it's a surprise, and why not, eh? So that's it for my Toadally Timelords deck profile. I've really enjoyed putting together this deck, and I'm sorry I've been away for a while. It's been super hectic with exams here. Please do like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Ngā mihi for now, and good night.